Picture this. It is a foggy night in November 1910. A private rail car sits idling at a station in Hoboken, New Jersey. The blinds are drawn tight. Inside sit 6 men who collectively control 25% of the world's wealth. They are using fake names. They are pretending to be duck hunters. But they are not hunting ducks. They are heading to a secluded club on Jekyll Island, Georgia. And they are about to rewrite the financial DNA of the United States. One of them is a German immigrant named Paul Warburg. He is holding a notepad that will become the blueprint for the Federal Reserve. But here is the twist. While Paul is building the American financial engine, his brother Max is in Hamburg. Max is the personal banker to Kaiser Wilhelm II. He is financing the German war machine that is about to turn its guns on American soldiers. 2 brothers. 2 rival superpowers. One banking dynasty caught in the crossfire. They challenged the Rothschilds. They opposed Zionism. They built the modern global economy. And then, history tried to erase them. To understand how we got the Federal Reserve, the Eurobond market, and the modern debt crisis, we have to go back to where the split began. The challengers, the years 1900. The financial world is ruled by one name, Rothschild. From London and Paris, the Rothschild family dictates the terms of global trade. They decide who gets loans. They decide which wars get funded. But in Hamburg, Germany, a challenger is rising. This is the House of Warburg. They are Sephardic Jews who trace their banking lineage back to Venice in 1559. But this generation is different. They are not just bankers. They are architects of a new order. There are 5 brothers, but 2 matter most for our story. Max Warburg stays in Germany to run the ancestral bank, Warburg & Co. He is aggressive, charming, and fiercely loyal to the German Empire. Paul Warburg is the intellectual. He looks at the global financial system and sees a ticking time bomb. He marries Nina Loeb in 1895. This is a strategic merger. Nina is the daughter of Solomon Loeb of Kuhn, Loeb & Co. in New York. Paul moves to New York City. Suddenly, the Warburgs have a transatlantic bridge. Max controls the flow of capital in Germany. Paul sits in the cockpit of American finance. They believe that linking the economies of Germany, Britain, and America will make war impossible. They believe that trade is the ultimate peace treaty. They are dead wrong. The American relic. Let's look at the United States in 1907. Ideally, America should be a financial superpower. Industrially, it is producing 30% of the world's manufactured goods. Financially, it is a third world country. There is no central bank. There is no safety net. Every autumn, when farmers need cash to harvest crops, the New York banks run dry. Interest rates spike to 50% or 100%. The stock market crashes with clockwork regularity. Paul Warburg arrives in New York and is horrified. He calls the American banking system a relic of the Middle Ages. He writes essays comparing the U.S. economy to a town with no fire department. He argues that when one house catches fire, the whole town burns down because there is no water reserve. He proposes a united reserve bank, but he has a massive problem. Americans hate centralized power, and they trust European bankers even less. Paul is seen as an outsider. He speaks with a German accent. He is Jewish in an era of rising nativism. So, he has to operate from the shadows. The Jekyll Island conspiracy, which brings us back to that train car in 1910. Senator Nelson Aldrich invites Paul Warburg to the secret retreat. For 9 days, they argue. Paul Warburg is the only one in the room who actually understands central banking mechanics. He lectures the senators. He draws diagrams. He convinces them that the U.S. needs a system that can expand the money supply during a crisis. He models it on the German Reichsbank, but tweaks it for American sensibilities. They don't call it a central bank. They call it the Federal Reserve System. It sounds federal. It sounds decentralized. but the mechanics are pure Warburg. Fast forward to December 23, 1913. President Woodrow Wilson signs the Federal Reserve Act. Paul Warburg is appointed to the first Federal Reserve Board. He is now one of the most powerful men in Washington. He has achieved his life's work. He has integrated the U.S. into the European financial model. The bridge between New York and Hamburg is complete. Then, 7 months later, an assassin in Sarajevo shoots Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and the bridge collapses. Brother against brother, August 1914. World War I begins.
The British Navy immediately cuts the transatlantic cables. Direct communication between Paul in Washington and Max in Hamburg is severed. They are now technically enemies. Max Warburg becomes a key advisor to the German government. He helps structure the loans that allow Germany to mobilize 11 million soldiers. He uses the family bank to secure resources for the Kaiser. He believes Germany is fighting a defensive war against Russian aggression. In New York, Paul Warburg is walking a tightrope. President Wilson declares neutrality, but American factories are churning out munitions for Britain and France. J.P. Morgan is lending billions to the Allies. Paul Warburg warns against this. He argues that fueling the war with American debt will cause massive inflation. Critics attack him immediately. They claim he is trying to sabotage the Allied war effort to help his brother. It is a lie, but it sticks. Paul is obsessed with protecting the US dollar, not the Kaiser, but the optics are impossible. By 1917, the German High Command makes a fatal error. They resume unrestricted submarine warfare. They sink American merchant ships. Paul Warburg's nightmare comes true. The United States declares war on Germany. Now, Paul is a Federal Reserve governor in a country at war with his own brother's nation. The loyalty trap, the anti-German hysteria in America reaches a fever pitch. Schools stop teaching the German language. People burn German books. And the press turns on Paul Warburg. They spread rumors that he has a secret radio transmitter in his house. They claim he is stalling interest rate hikes to help Germany. Paul writes to President Wilson. He says his presence on the board is becoming a liability to the very system he built. In May 1918, he resigns. It breaks him. He writes, "I have been the target of the bitterest attacks." Meanwhile, in Hamburg, Max Warburg is watching his world dissolve. The British blockade is starving Germany. 760,000 German civilians die of malnutrition. Max pleads with the Kaiser to end the war. He sees the financial ruin coming. He knows the German mark is about to become worthless. In November 1918, the guns fall silent. The Warburg brothers survived the war, but they are about to face something much worse than artillery. The Versailles Shock, 1919. The Paris Peace Conference. This is the most surreal family reunion in history. The American delegation arrives to negotiate the peace treaty. Advising them are partners from Kuhn, Loeb and Kopel's in-laws. The German delegation arrives to receive their punishment. Leading the German financial team is Max Warburg. They sit on opposite sides of the table at Versailles. The Allies present their bill. They demand reparations of 132 billion gold marks. This figure is astronomical. It exceeds the total national wealth of Germany. Max Vorburg reads the terms. He turns pale. He stands up in the Hall of Mirrors. He delivers a furious speech. He predicts that these terms will crush the German economy and lead to chaos. He refuses to sign the document accepting sole German guilt. He walks out of the conference, but the treaty is signed anyway. Paul Vorburg writes from New York. He agrees with Max. He calls the Treaty of Versailles a crime against civilization. He predicts it will lead to a second, deadlier war within 20 years. He is precise, he is accurate, and he is ignored. The Hyperinflation Rescue 1923. Germany. Paul's prediction comes true terrifyingly fast. France invades the Ruhr Valley to extract coal payments. The German workers go on strike. The government prints money to pay them. Hyperinflation explodes. A loaf of bread costs 200 billion marks. Life savings are wiped out in an afternoon. Max Vorburg is fighting to keep the German economy alive. He comes up with a radical innovation. People are using foreign currency illegally because the mark is trash. Max proposes a system to allow banks to issue loans in foreign currencies, pounds and dollars. It is a primitive version of what we call the Eurobond market today. It stabilizes trade just enough to prevent total famine. Across the ocean, Paul Vorburg organizes a rescue mission. He uses the International Acceptance Bank to funnel American capital back into Germany. He convinces New York bankers that a stable Germany is essential for global trade. For a few brief years in the mid-1920s, it works. The Golden Twenties arrive in Berlin, but beneath the surface, a new poison is spreading. The Zionist divide. While fighting economic collapse, the Vorburgs are fighting an ideological war within their own community. The Rothschilds are the great patrons of Zionism. They are buying land in Palestine. They are funding settlements. The Vorburgs take a different stance. They are non-Zionists. This is a crucial distinction.
They are not anti-Jewish. They are anti-nationalist. Max and Paul believe that Jews should be full, integrated citizens of their home countries. They fear that creating a Jewish state will lead to accusations of dual loyalty. They fear it will endanger Jews living in Europe and America. Instead of funding settlements in Palestine, the Vorburgs fund agricultural colonies in Russia and Ukraine. They want to prove that Jews can thrive anywhere. This puts them at odds with the rising Zionist movement. History will prove the Zionists right about the danger in Europe. But at the time, the Vorburgs believe they are protecting their people by advocating for assimilation. They believe that if they are good Germans and good Americans, they will be safe. 1933 proves them wrong. The Aryanization, January 1933. Adolf Hitler becomes chancellor. The attacks on Jewish finance become state policy. But interestingly, the Nazis don't touch Max Vorburg immediately. Hjalmar Schacht, the head of the Reichsbank, protects him. Why? Because the Nazis need money. They need Max's international connections to keep the German economy afloat while they rearm. For 5 years, Max Vorburg lives in a delusion. He thinks his service to the Kaiser counts. He thinks his family's 400-year history in Hamburg matters. He is wrong. By 1938, the mask falls off. The Nazis demand the Aryanization of M. Warburg & Co. The bank is seized. The Warburg name is chiseled off the stone facade. It is renamed Brinkmann, Wirtz & Co. Max Warburg is 71 years old. He is forced to flee the country his family helped build. He sails to New York. He leaves behind his home, his bank, and his identity. He dies in 1946, never seeing Germany again. Paul Warburg dies in 1932, just months before Hitler takes power. He dies watching the Federal Reserve fail to stop the Great Depression. He dies believing his life's work was a failure. The interrogation. But the story doesn't end with their deaths. There is one final cinematic twist. The year is 1945. The war is over. Germany is in ruins. A young officer in the U.S. Army Air Force enters a detention center. His name is Erich Warburg. He is Max Warburg's son. He fled Germany, joined the American military, and returned to fight the Nazis. He is now the chief interrogator. The prisoner brought before him is Hermann Göring. Göring is the number 2 Nazi. He is the man who authorized the seizure of the Warburg Bank. Now, he sits in a chair, answering questions from the son of the man he tried to destroy. It is the ultimate reversal of fortune. Erich Warburg doesn't just interrogate Nazis. He does something his father couldn't do. He reclaims the bank. He negotiates with the Allies. In 1949, the sign on the building in Hamburg is changed back. M. Warburg & Co. returns. The silent empire today. So where are they now? Unlike the Rothschilds, who are famous for their wines and castles, the Warburgs went underground. They learned the lesson of the 20th century. Visibility is dangerous. Today, M. Warburg & Co. is still one of the largest private banks in Germany. It is still owned by the families. In America, the legacy evolved into Warburg Pincus. This is not a bank for the public. It is a private equity giant. They manage over $80 billion in assets. They own stakes in healthcare, technology, and energy companies across 40 countries. They are the silent engine behind companies you use every day. If you combine the assets influenced by the Warburg lineage, the numbers are staggering. But you won't see them on the cover of Forbes. They don't give flashy interviews. They stick to the shadows. The story of the Warburgs is more than just a banking biography. It is a tragedy of the 20th century. Paul and Max Warburg believed in a rational world. They believed that if you connected the world's economies, you would end the world's wars. They built the Federal Reserve to stabilize markets. They invented international bonds to facilitate trade. They did everything right by the logic of money. But they were crushed by the logic of politics. They were the ultimate globalists in a world that turned violently nationalist. They were branded as traitors by Germany for being too American. They were branded as traitors by America for being too German. They were rejected by Zionists for being too assimilationist. And they were hunted by Nazis for being Jews. Yet, the systems they built, the central banks, the cross-border lending, the global liquidity, are exactly what runs our world today. Which brings us to the question for today. Paul Warburg designed the Federal Reserve to be independent of politics. He resigned when politics took over. Today, with the Fed printing trillions and inflation remaining sticky, many argue the system has become exactly what Paul Warburg feared, a political tool. Do you think the Federal Reserve has betrayed its original design? Or is it the only thing keeping the global economy from collapsing, just like Paul intended? I want to see your take in the comments. And if you want to understand the other side of this coin, you need to subscribe. In the next video, we are covering the one American bank that actually did fund the Nazis and got away with it. You don't want to miss that.